Hey, it's Christina. In today's video, we'll be doing a hip opening sequence. So start out in a modified child's pose by touching your toes together, separating your knees to the width of your mat, and bringing your forehead to the ground in front of you, stretching your arms forward. Just settle here and breathe into your hips, into the backs of your legs, and really just sink those hips down into that open space you've created between your legs. Just sink them down. Breathe into your hip sockets. Quiet your mind. Focus on your breathing and your hips. Visualize that they're feeling more open now. You're ready to stretch them. Take one more deep breath here. And slowly bring your forehead up, bringing your hips up, and coming into a downward facing dog. Breathe in your upside down V shape. Make sure your legs are hips distance apart, your arms are shoulder distance apart. Really sending those hips up and back. Send your heels down towards the ground. And take an inhale, raise your heels up, bend your knees, look forward, and step your feet up to meet your hands, coming into a forward fold. On your next inhale, straighten your spine, looking up halfway, and take an exhale, folding back down. Take an inhale, come up to standing with a straight spine. Bring your arms out and up, and then release your hands down by your sides into Tadasana. On your next inhale, rotate your arms out and raise them up towards the sky. Exhale, fold into a forward fold. Inhale, looking up halfway, straighten your spine. And exhale, fold back down, plant your hands on the floor, and step back into a plank. Move through a Chaturanga Dandasana, hovering above the ground 2 inches, and then press right up into an upward facing dog, arching that back. Go straight into a downward facing dog, and take a few deep and full breaths here. On your next inhale, raise your heels, bend your knees, look forward, and step your feet to meet your hands, coming to a forward fold. Inhale, looking up halfway, and exhale, fold back down. Come up to standing now with a straight back, bring your arms up, and then release them down by your sides. Inhale, rotate your arms out and raise them up. Exhale, fold your torso over your legs, forward fold, Uttanasana. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana, half forward fold, and exhale, plant your hands down and step back into a plank. Moving through your Chaturanga Dandasana, upward facing dog, and then right into your downward facing dog. Breathe and send those hips up and back. Adjust your feet if you need to. Send those heels down towards the floor. And then raise your heels, bend your knees, look forward, and step your feet up to meet your hands, coming to a forward fold. Inhale, look up halfway. Exhale, fold back down. And inhale, reach your arms out and up, come up to standing, then release your hands down by your side. Take an inhale, rotate your arms out and raise them up. Exhale, fold your torso into your Uttanasana, forward fold. Inhale, looking up halfway, and exhale, fold back down, coming through your plank, moving through your Chaturanga Dandasana, into upward facing dog, and into downward facing dog. Breathe here for a moment, getting ready to come into a lunge. So take an inhale. You're going to raise your right leg up behind you and then step it forward in between your hands, dropping your left knee down on the floor behind you, untucking that left foot. Make sure your right knee is right above your ankle. Walk your foot out to the edge of your mat and drop down onto your forearms. We're stretching the left hip here, so breathe and sink those hips down. Really get that back leg on that diagonal so you can feel that hip opening. We're also stretching the hip socket of the right leg, getting deep into that space. Take a few more deep breaths here. And now open your right arm, twisting towards your right leg, coming into a slight twist. And then drop your hand back down onto the floor, coming back up onto your hands. Walk your foot back to the center line of your body, tuck your left toe, and then step back into a downward facing dog. Come back to your breath. feel the down dog shape in your body. Take one more breath here. And then raise your left leg up behind you and step it forward in between your hands, coming into a lunge, dropping your right knee down on the floor, untucking that toe. Walk your left foot out to the edge of your mat and come onto your forearms, stretching your hips, getting into the hip socket of your left hip, really deeply flexing it and stretching the back hip, the right hip, on the diagonal behind you, feeling both hips opening. On your next inhale, raise your left arm, twisting towards the left leg and opening your shoulders for a brief twist. Just getting into that back a little bit. And slowly bring your arm back down onto the floor, coming back onto your hands, coming back up, walking your foot back to the center line of your body, tuck your back toe, and step back into a downward facing dog. Take one more deep breath here. And on your next inhale, raise your right leg up behind you one more time, turning your leg out from your hip and bending your right leg. Allow the weight of your foot and your leg to take your hip over into a stretch, really opening that hip socket. Continue to breathe here. And take an exhale now and come back to the center. And step your right leg forward in between your hands, coming into another low lunge. Drop your left knee onto the floor, untucking that toe. And this time, just bring your hands to your right thigh and deeply stretch the front of your left hip. Breathing here, the back leg is on a diagonal. Take one more deep breath here. And now for a deeper hip stretch. Bend your left leg behind you and grab it with your left arm. Still sinking those hips down towards the floor, just holding onto your foot, hugging it in towards your hips, sending those hips down towards the ground. Release your hands now down onto the floor. Tuck your back toe, press into the floor with your hands, and step right back into a downward facing dog. Breathe and send those hips up and back at the same time. Heels slowly going down towards the ground. Feel your shoulder blades on your back. On your next inhale, raise your left leg up behind you and turn that leg out from your hip, bending your left leg, allowing the weight of your leg to take your hip over into a deep stretch, keeping your hands and your right foot still on the ground. Just your hip and your legs are moving here, your left leg, that is. Take a few more deep breaths here. And turn your left leg back in and step it forward in between your hands, coming into a lunge on the left side, dropping your right knee onto the floor, untucking your right toe, and bringing your torso upright. Of course, making sure your left knee is above your left ankle here. Sinking those hips down towards the ground, keeping your torso up straight, balancing, stretching that hip. Keep breathing. And now for a deeper hip stretch if you'd like. Bend your back knee and grab your foot with your right hand. Still sinking those hips down here. You're just getting a deeper stretch into your hip sockets. And slowly come to releasing your foot now. Bring your hands back down onto the floor. Press into the floor with your hands and step right back into a down dog. Breathe in this shape for a moment. Taking deep breaths. Feeling the shape in your body. And now just come into a modified child's pose once again. Touch your toes together, separate your knees to the width of your mat. Sink your hips back down onto your heels, bring your forehead to the floor, reaching your arms forward. Still thinking about your hips, sinking those hips down, getting into those hip sockets. Take a few more full breaths here. And on your next inhale, bring your torso back upright and come up to standing. Bring your legs out wide, turning your feet outward from your hips. Bring your hands onto your hips and take an exhale and sink your hips down, bending your knees, Bring your hips to about the level of your knees, not any lower than that. Feeling those quads start to work, getting into those hips. And now take an exhale and drop your torso down in between your legs. Bring your hands to the floor. Turn your feet back parallel, straightening your legs and coming into a forward fold. Coming back into your wide leg squat. So turn your feet back out. Bring your hands to your hips and then bending your knees, sinking those hips down. Breathe here. And now bring your hands back down onto the floor and straighten your legs. Turning your feet parallel, drop your head down towards the ground, coming back into a forward fold or Prasarita Padottanasana. Coming back up into your wide leg squat. So turn your legs back parallel, bend your knees, bring your hands back to your hips, and once more sink those hips down. Stay here, feel your quads working, feel your hips sinking down, and bring your hands to the floor, coming back into your wide leg forward fold. Turn your feet parallel, straighten those legs, drop your head down towards the ground. Stretch those hips and the backs of your legs, lower back as well. Slowly coming up to standing now with a straight back. We're going to walk our feet in towards each other a little bit, keeping your legs turned out from those hips. Drop down into another squat, and this time your legs are a bit closer together, and you can sink your hips down towards the floor so that they are lower than your knees. Bring your hands to the center of your chest. You can use your elbows to help your knees stay out over those ankles. If you're experiencing knee pain, just come right out of it and go back into your wide-legged forward fold. If you're feeling okay in this stretch, it's a great stretch for your hip flexors. Take one more breath here, and then bring your hands down, straightening your legs, coming onto your knees onto the ground. Take your blanket and fold it so that it's really thick. Figure out what way is best for you at the height of your stretch. If you need 2 blankets, 2 towels, perhaps a block. It just depends on your hip flexibility and your inner thigh flexibility. So take the time, you can pause the video and figure out what you need once we get into the pose. As you can see, I've folded mine fairly thick. My hips are still quite far off the ground in this pose. So bring your legs out wide, coming onto the inner edges of your knees, and then drop down onto your forearm and rest your hips on top of your blankets. If you're quite flexible, perhaps you're a dancer, you have great turnout and you don't need any blankets, that's fine as well. Just getting into those hips and inner thighs here as much as you can. If you are even closer to the ground, you can drop onto your forehead onto the ground, whatever you need. It's all about your own body and listening to what it needs. Wherever you are in this pose, take a few more deep breaths and slowly bringing yourself back up onto your hands, gently removing your hips from the blanket or towels, and then coming to Baddha Konasana, sitting on the ground with your feet together, your knees out to the side, sit up nice and tall. Take an inhale, lengthen up through your spine. And on your exhale, fold your torso over your legs, coming into a forward fold. You can bring your knees down with your elbows gently if you'd like, if they're not already down on the floor. Just getting deeper into those hips. Try to find as much length in your back as you can as you're folded forward. Breathing as you stretch. Each exhale, stretch a bit deeper. And then slowly coming upright. Bring your legs out to the side now, coming into Upavista Konasana. Point your knees and your toes up towards the ceiling, sitting up tall on those hips, not on your tailbone here. And on your exhale, you'll fold your torso down, reaching your arms forward, coming down as close to the ground as you can, keeping as much length in your back as you can, getting into those inner thighs, those hip sockets. Keep those knees and toes pointed upward. Continue to breathe, using your exhales to stretch a bit deeper every time. Although you're actively trying to stretch here, you're still being mindful of your body, listening to what it needs. Don't stretch anything too fast. Take one more deep breath here. And now bring your torso back upright, bring your legs in towards each other, and come to lying on your back. Step on those feet and walk them in towards your hips. Once you're settled on your back, take your right leg and cross it over your left thigh, turning your right leg out from the hip. Grab your left shin or behind your left leg, wherever you can reach today, and take an exhale, gently hugging those hips in towards your upper body. Keep that right leg turned out and keep breathing into your hip sockets and the outer edges of your right hip. Take one more deep breath here and release your hand from your leg. Bring your foot down, releasing your right leg, crossing your left over the right now, and grabbing onto your right shin or behind your right leg. Hug those knees in towards your upper body. Keep your lower back on the floor. Keep breathing with each exhale. Gently hug those legs inward a bit more. Keep that left leg turned out, stretching the outer edge of your left leg and both hip sockets. Taking one more full breath here, and then releasing your hands from your right leg, dropping your foot back down onto the floor, and release your left foot. Turn onto your side and help yourself back upright, coming into a pigeon pose now. So we'll prepare by taking our blanket or blankets, depending on your current flexibility. Start out in a downward facing dog. Step your right leg forward and then walk it over to the left, dropping your shin and your knee down onto the floor and sinking those hips down to rest on your blanket or blankets. Once you're in your pigeon pose, make sure that your shin is as parallel to the front of your mat as possible, and you can drop down onto your forearms, or you can also drop down onto your forehead, stretching your arms forward a bit more and just relaxing, getting a bit of a deeper stretch in those hips. If your hips don't quite reach the floor, it's important to have that towel or blanket there as a bit of leverage, just to lift the floor up towards your hips so that the stretch is not quite as strenuous and it doesn't hurt you. So just breathing here wherever your hips are, wherever your body is today, being sure that you're listening to yourself and what your body needs. Taking one more deep breath here. And slowly come to lifting your head, coming back onto your hands. Slowly walk your foot back to the center line of your body, tuck your back toe, and then come right back into a downward facing dog. Stay here for a moment, feel the difference in your body. You'll have to move your blanket as well to the other side. And on your inhale, step your left foot forward, coming into pigeon on the left side. Walking that foot over to the right and dropping your knee and your shin down onto the floor, keeping that shin bone as parallel as possible to the front of your mat. If it's not parallel, then don't force it. And once you're in your pigeon, your hips are resting on your blanket, you can drop down onto your forearms. Or if you'd like, you can drop down onto your forehead and get a bit of a deeper stretch here. Stay parallel on that back leg, keeping the top of your foot on the ground. Getting deep into those hips, the outer edge of your left hip, both hip sockets, stretching the front of your right hip, your low back as well as you fold over. Come into a few more full and deep breaths here, breathing into any discomfort you might be feeling. Take one more deep breath here, really getting into those hips. And now bring your torso back upright. Walk your foot back to the center line of your body, pressing into the floor with your hands, and step back into a downward facing dog, sending those hips up and back. Feel the difference in your hips now. How are they feeling now as opposed to before? And now coming into a child's pose. Drop your knees down onto the floor, touch your toes together, separate your knees to the width of your mat once again, and drop your torso over your legs, stretching your arms forward. Breathe and sink those hips down towards your heels, getting into those hip sockets once again. Feel the difference now from when you started out in the sequence. Your hips are feeling a lot more open now. Starting to come inward, start to focus on your breath. Take one more breath here. And bring your torso back upright and come to the wall. So bring your blanket to the wall, as I've done here, and lie on your side, scooching your hips in towards the wall. Then roll onto your back and lift your legs up towards the sky, coming up right onto that blanket. Your hips are slightly off the edge of that blanket as well. And you'll now come to dropping your legs down towards the ground, keeping your legs straight. You can keep your feet relaxed. You can bring your hands to your stomach as I've done here, or out to the side, whatever is comfortable for you. And just continue to breathe and close your eyes, deepening your breath. If this is too intense for you, then just leave your legs straight and pointed up as we started out in. And just stay here for as long as you'd like, keeping your eyes closed, coming inward, and focusing on your breathing. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Namaste.